Hi, my name is Brittany Riley, and we are cooking here in the beautiful kitchens of Home Appliance. You are in the kitchen with Britt. Thanks for joining me. We are going to be going over how to make a focaccia bread, and we are using some awesome ingredients from a store in Chesterland, Ohio called the Gourmet Olive. We're using these Olivelli products, which is a pizza olive oil, which is pretty awesome, a black garlic infused sea salt, which if you're not familiar with black garlic, basically it is a fresh garlic that has been fermented for a certain amount of time, as little as 30 days, but it can go on for long periods of time. The longer it goes, the more flavor it kind of enhances. And basically with the black garlic, what happens is the fermentation process obviously changes the color, but it changes the flavor a lot. It actually softens it a little bit, almost sweetens it, and you get a lot of really great health benefits. So this is delicious. When I opened it up, it was like a wave of the most amazing smells. And then we have a Mediterranean rub, which has rosemary, cumin, coriander, a little bit of sugar, onion, garlic, all sorts of good things. That's gonna go on the very top of our focaccia bread. We have some warm water here, and yeast is going to be going into this dough. So this is a yeast dough, and yeast really thrives in a warm environment, and it feeds off of sugar. So we added in just a little bit of honey to help kind of boost that environment up for our yeast. So I'm gonna go ahead and take our yeast and stir that in. It's nice to kind of get that started and have it kind of activate before you even get going with your other ingredients. So I usually use just a fork and kind of gently stir it in. You don't need to do anything crazy. You just want to make sure that at least the water is covering all of that good stuff so that it starts to activate. I generally will go for instant yeast. It's kind of nice because when you use instant yeast, you will see a lot of activity happening on the surface of your liquid before you even add it into your other ingredients. And that helps you to know that it's activated, it's going to be working for you, and you don't waste any time on maybe using some old yeast or anything like that. So I'm gonna kind of tap off all of the extra that got stuck, and we'll let that sit for a few minutes. I went ahead and halved our grape tomatoes, but I'll just show you guys the safest way is to kind of just hold on either side and then just run your knife right along the center. So that's the easiest, safest way. You know, I know a lot of people ask what kind of knife they should be using for tomatoes, and the only good answer is a sharp knife. Basically, your knife should be sharp enough that when you go to cut a tomato, it doesn't press it down at all, it runs right through it. So that's kind of a good test anyway to see if you might need to sharpen your knives. The sharper your knife is, the safer it is. I know it doesn't seem like it to a lot of people, but basically you never want to be struggling when you're cutting anything, and you'll avoid a lot of cuts by doing that. We have our flour here, just all-purpose flour, and then our good black garlic sea salt. So I'm gonna just kind of toss those together, and we'll give our yeast a few more minutes, but I can already see it basically starts to foam a little bit on the top and then also create some little bubbles. So we'll give it another minute, but I'm gonna go ahead and stir into that some of our olive oil. So we're gonna start with just 1/4 of a cup that goes right into the rest of our liquid here. And just kind of gently fold that in. All right. So I think we're ready. What we can do, and you can use a mixer to do this as well, of course, but focaccia bread is a pretty delicate bread, so we don't need to be beating it with a dough hook and kneading it for very long. So I tend to do it by hand just because it's one less big dish to clean and kind of goes pretty quickly. So I will start by stirring it in with my spatula here, but I'll probably have to get my hands in here in a minute. It's usually how it goes. Yeah, but it's coming together really nicely. It's a perfect ratio. Once it starts to get a little bit trickier and it looks pretty scrappy, that's when you kind of want to get your hands in just to finish incorporating everything. Like I said, we're really not going to need this very much. We are just going to get it all mixed, and then we will transfer this to a different bowl. We'll kind of pour a little bit of our olive oil into that bowl so that our dough doesn't stick, and it's going to be covered and it will rise for about an hour. It won't quite double in size, but you'll be amazed at how much it actually will rise just with that little bit of yeast. So, and it's okay if your dough's still a little bit scrappy. It'll actually kind of smooth and even out during that rising process, but you don't want to leave anything behind in the bowl. So this is kind of what we're looking at. It's fairly smooth, but it's not perfect. And what I will do is take a clean bowl, put a little bit of olive oil in, like I said, set this in and just drape a clean towel over the top, and we'll be back in an hour to check on it. Okay, so it's been just over an hour and I just checked on our dough and it looks perfect. Like I said, it won't double completely in size, but it's grown quite a bit. And then another thing to kind of check is when you press on it, those dimples kind of remain, which this is perfect, and it smells so good too. All right, so we've got our pizza olive oil. I actually decided I was gonna use my cast iron skillet to bake it in because then I'll get a nice little crust on the outside. And I'll be able to cut it in wedges, but you can use like a half sheet pan or even a 9x13, whatever you have available or whatever you want to use. I'm going to drizzle in a couple tablespoons, and obviously it'll keep it from sticking, but it'll also give that extra flavor. And you can actually hear those awesome bubbles in there. I'm gonna kind of spread it out into my pan, and I'm using kind of a large cast iron, so it might be just a little bit bigger than what would be best for this, but I think it'll be perfect. Now I'm gonna wipe up real quick and drizzle with a little bit more of that olive oil before anything else. Again, more flavor, but also I have this nice Mediterranean rub that I'm gonna be sprinkling on, and it'll help it to stick instead of kind of falling out when it's baking. So I'm gonna sprinkle this on and then just kind of press it down a little. If you want, you can always save some of your black garlic, sea salt, and sprinkle that on like right when it comes out of the oven hot. I'll probably do that myself. You can add more salt here, but it kind of just melts in the baking process. And if you add a nice sea salt at the end, once it comes out, you get that nice flaky bite and everything. So that's this good stuff. And then we have, in addition to our cherry tomatoes, we also have some feta cheese to add on top. So that'll make it perfect. It almost makes it like a pizza. All right, so I'm going to probably get too meticulous if I let myself. So I'm just gonna sprinkle them on. I'm not gonna look at how perfect they are. Sprinkle them on. And I'm doing the tomatoes first. I kind of always do that when there's anything with cheese, just because, again, like the cheese on top, as it melts, it'll kind of help to adhere your tomatoes onto your dough, your pizza, whatever it is that you're making, versus the opposite, just because a lot of the time we start losing our tomatoes and stuff since they don't stick as well. All right, so it's fairly even. And I've got about a half of a cup of some really good feta crumbled up. This is the kind of thing too where you might want to splurge on your feta. Get a nice block of it and crumble that up versus kind of getting the stuff that's already crumbled. You get so much more flavor and a lot less of that starchiness. When it's pre-crumbled, you kind of end up with a lot of extra starch in there to keep it from caking together, whereas this is just good fresh cheese. All right, this is gorgeous. This is going in the oven at 450 and it's about 20 to 25 minutes. So I always set my timer, shorter amount of time and then double check it. Especially since I'm in a bigger pan and mine's a little bit thinner, it might take a little less time. If you were to use a smaller pan and had like a nice thick bread, it might take that extra time to cook all the way through. All right, 450, see you in a little bit. Okay, 25 minutes and this is perfect. If you could smell what I am smelling, you would be hungry too. So I can't wait to cut into this. I'm gonna give it a few minutes to cool and I'm gonna dig right in. And if you guys have any questions at all, let me know. And also, obviously, you might want to get some of those yummy extra ingredients that I was using. Like I said, they are from the Gourmet Olive in Chesterland, Ohio, and you can order any of their items on their website, which is thegourmetolive.com. It's family owned, local business, and I can't wait to taste this treat. Enjoy!